Hello there. I did a short video a couple of days ago about administrations, and I can't really let that pass without talking about pre-pack administrations. So what are they? How do they work? What's the issue with them? And what are my thoughts on pre-pack administrations? A couple of things I'd like to cover straight away is just to expose some myths, I guess, because I hear people talking about a company being placed into a pre-pack administration as if that's a separate procedure. There is nothing in the insolvency legislation which refers to pre-pack administrations. What it means, the pre-pack bit is just the term that's grown up for where a sale of a business is agreed, or the terms of the sale are agreed prior to the appointment of the administrator, and the sale being completed immediately after the appointment. So it's in effect a pre-packaged sale, a pre-packaged deal, and that's where the term comes from. The second one is that there was some change in the legislation which allowed these sorts of deals to go ahead. I guess that's half right. Again, there was no change that suddenly said you can do a pre-packaged sale. They've always been with us. They were just much less prevalent. And the big change, which I covered in my last video, is 2002, when the method of placing a company into administration was made much simpler. And cheaper, crucially, and that opened up the procedure to a much wider range of companies. I think, though, the other reason why we're seeing so many more of these sorts of deals is the way businesses are funded these days. If I go back to my time in the 80s and 90s when working for one of the big firms, when we were appointed to a business where we thought there was an underlying business that had value, we almost always would try and trade it after our appointment to allow us time, a week or two, to get information out to parties, to advertise it, to market it, and get as many potential purchasers as we could for the business. Times have changed now. Businesses are funded very differently. Most small businesses, particularly, if I take the example of let's say a small business which I come along, it's in difficulty, it is going to have to go into a formal insolvency procedure. But I think there's an underlying business there that's of value. It's got £100,000, let's say, due from its customers on its invoices. It's got some motor vehicles, staff in an office, and office equipment. The problem is that £100,000 worth of sales ledger is financed under a factoring agreement. That's where a secured lender advances money against invoices when they're issued, so that the company is able to get the cash straight away rather than having to wait 30 or 60 days, whatever their credit period is. So those debts belong to the finance company. I can't touch them. The motor vehicles, they're all on finance, contract hire purchase, lease, whatever it may be. There may be some value in one or two of them depending on the contract terms and how long they've had those vehicles. But it's likely to be a small amount of money. And then the only other thing I've got is some office furniture and equipment, computer equipment, which these days has little or no value at all. So in effect, I've got nothing of any value that I can use to trade with. And I immediately on my appointment as administrator, I'm going to start incurring costs for wages, rent at the premises, other overheads, utilities, and that sort of thing. So trading in many, many instances now simply isn't practical. So take my example, those assets are all pledged, but I think there is an underlying business which has some value. There's their customer list, there's know-how, somebody may be prepared to pay something for that. What do I do with that? Well, I want to try and find someone to pay me some cash for it. How do I do that? Well, I can do some very quick marketing. I can't trade the business. It's all got to be done before the appointment of the administrator. Find a buyer, agree the terms very, very quickly, get the deal done so that on the day of my appointment, all I have to do is sign the document. I'm not incurring any costs that I'm going to struggle to pay. What about sales to the existing management? Well, I understand why that's such a big deal for people. Somebody owed money by this company, suddenly gets a notice that it's in administration, and by the way, the business has been sold to the existing management. Again, I think speed is of the essence here. It's an issue, particularly in the smaller end. Very often, the only people who think this has any real value, this business has any real value, is the existing management. And plus, they know the business. They're not going to have to do any due diligence. They're not going to worry too much about the terms of the sale agreement, whereas a third party may have his lawyers poring over the terms for days, which in many instances we simply don't have. So of course I understand the frustration, the irritation, the anger that the people who have been responsible for somebody losing money are now carrying on going forward with the same business. But from my point of view, if I've suddenly got somebody paying me, say, £25,000 for goodwill for this business, as against pretty much nothing from the other assets, I think I've done my job. Frankly, it's a deal I really can't turn down, whoever is buying it. Now, I could talk a lot about the regulations around pre-pack administrations, or the hoops I would have to jump through to justify that. That's maybe something for another video. But that, in a nutshell, is how pre-pack administrations work, and what I see as the benefits, why they are a good thing in some instances. Hope that's helpful. I'll be back with something else soon in a few days' time. Bye now.